Let's talk about some myths about spelling. I'm a gardener and I love planting seeds and seeing what grows. And I was just watching birds out in my backyard eating what's left of the sunflowers in my yard that I planted in May or something. And now, of course, there's some seeds and the birds are chomping away. And I was thinking about, are there really any bad seeds? Like even a seed that doesn't germinate might feed a worm. But then I thought about weeds and weeds can choke out the good things. And I've been encountering that some with my work and wanted to just talk about what the weeds are with ideas about spelling. I think one of the biggest myths around spelling is that it is speech written down. If we're thinking that the written language, our spelled words, are meant to represent the spoken words, it's super frustrating every time we encounter a word that has a letter doing something differently than we might expect. And so this is one of those things that myth that just sets kids up to be frustrated, to think that English spelling is horrible, for teachers to give up on teaching the real reasons a letter is there, because if it doesn't make sense, there's no reason to explore it further. So if we know that spelling isn't about speech written down, we can look elsewhere. We can look to the tools we have to explain why words are spelled the way they are. So first, let's talk about speech. So as I am articulating, you're hearing all of these different sounds, right? I'm speaking in English at the moment, but my English is going to sound really, really different than my colleagues in Australia, even my colleagues in Boston or Atlanta. We all might have different dialects. Some of us are going to pronounce the sounds in our words very differently from each other. I say car, not ka, and my Louisiana in-laws have very different accent from my Midwestern parents. So this is something that we see in languages, but we aren't all spelling our words differently, even though we're pronouncing them differently. Nobody in Boston is taking off the R at the end of doctor, even if they're saying doctor. Excuse my attempt at a Boston accent, because I'm not good at that stuff. You know, there's a reason there's an international phonetic alphabet that's used by linguists, by speech pathologists, by all sorts of people that actually need to try to represent the spoken word as accurately as possible in written form. And it uses all sorts of different markers than we use in English, so that we can even demonstrate subtle differences in our speech, like whether there's a puff of air after a certain sound, distortions, all sorts of things are represented that way that we do not represent in our spelling. Another way we see that spelling is not speech written down is in homophones. Homophones are a great way to help kids understand this. We have so many words in the English language that sound the same and they're spelled differently. And they're spelled differently on purpose whenever possible because it helps keep their meaning clear. So spelling prioritizes meaning. It's going to always prioritize meaning over sound. And when we can start teaching kids about spelling this way, we are planting seeds without the weeds. How does this myth take root? What does it end up looking like for kids? So there's a lot of kids who it won't severely impact their spelling and reading skills, but they would be better off if they learned the truth sooner. And then there's a lot of kids who really are harmed long-term by not understanding how the written word really works. And we might see this with kids who are still spelling everything that ends in shun with S-H-U-N. So action, they might spell A-C-S-H-U-N. And that is because they have been bathing in this sound first environment and they haven't learned the importance of words being built with bases and affixes, prefixes, suffixes, connecting vowel letters. And so they aren't aware that that base and action, ACT, is going to stick with it. No matter what we fix to it, that ACT stays because that's the heart of the meaning. Action is ACT plus the suffix ION. And we are holding the meaning together because action is built off of act. Kids can quickly understand this idea. I want to end this by encouraging people to include this language when they're talking about spelling, that one thing letters can do is spell sounds. I think it's really important for kids to know right off the get-go that that's just one of the jobs of letters in words. We can shift from this idea of S spells S to one thing S does is it spells S, right? This leaves room for all of the Z spellings, which is, they far outweigh the S for S, and it leaves room to talk about S acting as a plural, S acting for verb tenses. So we are setting kids up right from the get-go to understand that spelling has more complexity than just representing our sounds on paper. Really young kids can understand these differences around us in the world. Kids can understand that birds came from dinosaurs, but they're, the robin isn't the same thing as a T-Rex. They are able to hold much more nuance than we sometimes think, and let's give this to them while we're teaching them about how to read and how to spell. Hi, it's Kathleen Love with Rain City Reading. Thanks so much for watching my videos. You can like and subscribe on YouTube, find me on Instagram, Facebook, or just at my plain old website. Thanks.